There are lots of post-apocalyptic games out there. Fallout, Metro, Mad Max, Rage, Kenshi, Wasteland. How the hell do you even play this thing? And others. Amidst the endless wasteland of options, there's one genre you won't see much of. Real-time strategy. Apparently, nuking things in real time is a niche market. I guess it's a post-nuclear game now. Enter Krush Kill and Destroy, the 1997 RTS that dared to give the post-apocalyptic world a strategic twist, and a pretty funny name while at it. Developed by the Aussies at Beam Software and published by Melbourne House and by the great consumer and slinger of card packs EA, this game thrusts players into a post-nuclear world where two factions are duking it out. On one side, you have the survivors, humans who escaped nuclear Armageddon by hiding in underground vaults. On the other hand, you have the evolved humans who said, radiation? Nice, maybe I'll get some superpowers, comic book style. That didn't really happen, but they did mutate pretty badly and managed to tame giant mutant beasts. Because what else are you supposed to do? Critics at the time mostly gave Krush Kill and Destroy a thumbs up, though a few couldn't resist calling it a Command & Conquer clone. And let's be honest, it actually is. The units, suspiciously familiar. The buildings and resource management, a little too deja vu. And yes, you can still play Godzilla with tanks rolling over hapless infantry. Regardless of the criticisms, the Australian devs were pleased with the results, especially since the post-apocalyptic RTS became a bestseller in the German retail store, media market, and shortly after it was the third highest selling computer game in Korea in July. So I can imagine the multiplayer was pretty good. With such results, enthusiasm was high, and so a decision was made. A decision to start working on a sequel. In this review, we'll be looking at these aspects in order to answer one question. Is Krush Kill and Destroy 2 Krossfire still worth playing? Grab your Geiger counter, steer clear of death hippos, and let's see. Welcome to Krush Kill and Destroy 2 Krossfire, where the apocalypse is 40 years older but just as radioactive, and everyone's still too angry to let bygones be bygones. If the first Krush Kill and Destroy was affectionately called a Command & Conquer clone, the sequel doubles down on that legacy, but hey, it also sprinkles in enough originality to keep things spicy. In Krush Kill and Destroy 2, just like in the first game, you'll have to harvest a resource. Once again, the all-important oil. From there, you'll build an arsenal that includes your usual suspects: soldiers, grenadiers, rocket launcher dudes, tanks, and a whole lot of other things that go boom. However, the sequel goes bigger. I mean, sure, there are tanks, mechs, and beasts, but the sequel introduces an air force and even amphibious units. What's next? Sharks with laser beams attached to their heads? Sadly, no, but we do have death hippos, which kind of sounds like normal hippos if you ask me. Anyway, the good doesn't stop there because both the survivors and the evolved are back. However, a shiny new threat is brought into the fray. Oh, what a plot twist, we have a third faction. Here's the backstory. 40 years ago, during the First Surface War, the events of the first game, a splinter group of the survivors went away to get the cavalry. And now they're back, after making some improvements to their technology naturally. The survivors want to take back the world and eliminate the mutants, or, as the first game's manual said, wipe the tainted land with the freakers' filthy stinking dead hides. Not to be outdone, the evolved have been busy too. Forget beach vacations, they've tamed more mutant beasts, embraced their primal side, and added bloodied altars to their list of must-have home decor. The evolved still believe that the nuclear war was caused by the Scourge, angry gods punishing humans for destroying nature, and now they're on a holy mission to stop the survivors from wrecking the planet again. At least someone's trying to save the planet, even if it does involve some human sacrifices here and there. With both sides busy fighting one another, the Series 9 agricultural robots make their appearance and are hellbent on killing all humans as they cause the nuclear war, which made their primary function, agriculture, irrelevant. With the soil being irradiated by nuclear fallout, the machines found a new purpose: war. And war never changes. So they changed from farm bots to war machines. In case farmer bots going to war sounds a little bit funny, it is, because just like the first game, Krush Kill and Destroy 2 has a slightly comedic angle. I really appreciate the fact that the three factions are quite distinct visually. The survivors have a futuristic look to them, while also maintaining a distinctly human architecture. Furthermore, they have extended their use of machines and better technologies, having access to more refined tanks than previously. The Evolve distance themselves even more from technology than they did in the first game, forsaking most vehicles and even firearms, for the most part, for their infantry. Now that they are fully embracing their more primal way of life, they rely on simple building materials, cloth, bone, and whatever else. Demonic energy, I guess. Whatever. Anyway, expect more tame beasts to accompany these guys. As for the Series 9, they have a very mechanized and industrial look to them, which should be expected out of robots. Aesthetics are unimportant, while optimization is quite important. While the three factions are visually distinct, most of the buildings and units are equivalent to one another. There are some stat differences, but for the most part, they function identically. I'd like to point out that I'm using a mod called Krush Kill and Destroy 2 HD patch, not for the resolution, because I don't like the fact that it makes units really small and difficult to see, but because it fixes a bug where I would get a random mission fail after a certain while. End of story, now go out there and blow things up. Alright, let's blow things up, oh yeah! But hold your horses there, demolition enthusiasts. Explosives don't come cheap. We're gonna need oil, the lifeblood, or should I say the earth blood of our apocalyptic economy? So, let's dive into the riveting world of Krush Kill and Destroy 2's economy. In this world, the economy is delightfully straightforward. Slap an oil rig on an oil field, send an oil tanker to shuffle the black gold back to a power station, and voila, you're officially funding your war machine. It's the same setup from the first game because, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But wait, this time there's a twist. Oh yes folks, we've got passive income. When tech levels 4 and 5 are unlocked, and after you've researched the outpost, you can build fancy schmancy passive resource generating buildings. The survivors get the solar collectors and the thermal exchangers. Looks like the survivors are going eco-friendly. Good for them. The Series 9 robots rock windmills and wind turbines, because they're actually a bunch of hipster apocalypse machines. And the Evolved, well, they have Big Pig and Pigpen. Yes, their economy runs on livestock and on methane. Honestly, this is pretty funny. I like the idea. Speaking of upgrades, you can now research the power station to speed up the tanker unloading time. Sounds trivial, right? Wrong. This upgrade is a game changer, especially when you've got multiple tankers zipping around like caffeinated bull ants. Speed is life in Krush Kill and Destroy 2. Trust me, you'll notice the difference. Oh, and guess what? The AI is no longer blatantly cheating when extracting oil. Or if it does, it's sneaky enough that I haven't caught it. I've mentioned research, the backbone of Krush Kill and Destroy 2 multiple times, so let's explain it. But first I'll point out that it's the same deal as it was in the first game. Research buildings to unlock faster processes, shiny new units, and upgraded structures. The research process can be started at the research station. The maximum tech level in the game is 5, and each mission in the campaign has a certain tech level. This means that on specific missions you can only reach the level stated at the start. So if a mission says tech level 2, you can research or upgrade the building twice. As the campaign progresses, the tech level will increase, allowing you to use your faction's best units. Though most of the time you won't need the best, just the most. Anyway, let me give you a couple of examples. When researching the machine shop, it unlocks the big tanks, the Enforcer at level 4 and the Juggernaut at level 5. Plus aircraft like the Airlifter and the hilariously named Orville Fighter and Wilbur Bomber. Meanwhile, upgrading the outpost unlocks the map. Yes, just like in the first game, you start levels without a map. At level 1, it's just terrain. Enemies only appear after researching the building twice. Further researching the outpost will unlock the passive generating buildings. Something that players of the first game might pick up on is that researching the outpost no longer unlocks new infantry. This time, we have a dedicated building for recruiting infantry, the barracks. Another thing that upgrading the outpost in the first game did was that it unlocked the absolutely vital turrets. Just like with the infantry, we now have a dedicated building for the turrets, and the small surprise, that building is called the Armory. Since I've mentioned the damn things, I am happy to announce that turrets, while still important, are no longer mandatory like in the first game. Don't get me wrong, you should still build turrets on some maps, but oftentimes, offense is the best defense. Unless we're talking about the AI, in which case turrets will be your biggest nightmare. Most buildings, with a few exceptions, have a limit of 4. You cannot have an endless number of power stations extracting all the oil from the map, and you still can't build turrets like you're playing the Protoss in Starcraft, as you can only have 4 of each of the 4 variants. Unless you're the AI and you have an already established base with much more than 4 turrets. I'll go into detail about this topic later. As for the surprise I mentioned, well, researching the Armory, the building that unlocks the turrets, also unlocks constructible units. Think about them as customizable tanks that come in 3 sizes: small, medium, and large. You can slap on a radar, a plasma gun, AA guns, repair tools, or even bunkers to turn them into APCs. Sounds great, right? Well, not really, as they're quite expensive and often mediocre. Honestly, I'd rather spam infantry than waste resources on some bad tanks. With the exception of the artillery unit, which is amazing as its range is bigger than that of any turret. Even though I didn't use constructibles too much in the campaign, it's nice to have the choice, and I like the idea they were going for. I will reiterate what I said about research in my video about the first game, because it still rings true. I like the research mechanic because it gives me more things to do, and it allows me to, in a sense, customize my experience by upgrading things in accordance with my own playstyle. So, good job, Beam. The veteran mechanic makes a comeback. Units that deal more damage and rack up kills level up, earning stat boosts and in some cases, self-healing abilities. The veteran status is indicated by the color of the health bar. Beyond becoming deadlier, survivor and evolved veteran infantry units can heal themselves, but not the Series 9 infantry. The machines do become better fighters, but lack the self-heal aspect. The same thing happens to mechanized units and aircraft. Their stats are improved, but there is no self-heal. Don't worry, each faction has a building that repairs units. I'm going to have to reference my video on Krush Kill and Destroy 1 because I'm going to talk about engineers. Yes, seriously, engineers were a bit of a problem in the first game. The main purpose of engineers is to repair buildings, and that's it. Sadly, unlike in some Command & Conquer games, they don't capture enemy buildings. In Krush Kill and Destroy, you don't have a repair button, and instead you just shove an engineer into a damaged building and it magically repairs itself faster than you can say Post-Apocalyptic DIY. Engineers in the first game were painfully slow and had some pathfinding issues, but Krush Kill and Destroy 2 mostly fixes that. They're smarter, faster, and occasionally OP if they actually manage to reach their target. That being said, there are times where the engineer's pathfinding doesn't work very well and they move towards their target using the longest way possible, but that's something that all units do sometimes. Sadly, there are occasional pathfinding issues and it does take a unit a second or two to start moving towards where you told them to. Most of the time this is fine, but there are moments where your units will take the scenic route straight into an enemy turret. Expect a few casualties due to questionable AI. Alright folks, strap in and let's dive into the thrilling combat of Krush Kill and Destroy 2. Spoiler alert, it's just serviceable. Rockets zoom, lasers zap, arrows fly, Molotov cocktails soar dramatically, and flamethrowers do their flaming thing. There are explosions, there's death, there's killing and crushing, the essentials. But something feels off. Let's dissect the carnage, shall we? Honestly, after playing the campaign a couple of times, it looks like none of the units really stand out, not even a little bit. It's like someone decided, let's make 3 factions, but copy-paste everything. The survivors have the Grenadier, the evolved have the Rioter, who lobs Molotovs like a pyromaniac at a barbecue, and the Series 9 robots have the Pod Launcher. Different names, same vibes. The pattern repeats over and over again. The Rocketeer, the Homing Bazookoid, the Spore Missile, basically the same thing. Just like the Anaconda tank, that's basically the War Mastodon or the Tank Bot. Stat differences exist on paper, but in combat, it's really difficult to see them. The first game also had equivalent buildings and units, but the differences could be seen a lot more. For example, the snipers were far superior to Crazy Harry, who I kept calling Henry in my previous video. The Scorpion, equivalent to the Survivor Buggy, was actually a bit OP, as it was good against infantry, it could even crush them, and it was pretty good against tanks. Now, in the sequel, the Scorpion is reduced to a glorified scout, perfect for clogging up the battlefield and not much else. The Evolved were once the kings of badass beast units, but now they've gone from apex predators to the equivalent of a pug. Likewise, I have to admit that I was quite disappointed with the lack of personality for all three factions. In a game like Starcraft, for example, factions ooze personality.
I got your message, Magistrate, and frankly, I don't care what you have to say about Confederate regulations. You damn fringe world yokels are all alike. Don't know where your loyalties lie. Y'all have a real good day now, you hear?
Each race has its own flavor, strategies and quirks. Want to turtle up as the Terrans? Bunker down and let those siege tanks sing. Prefer Zerg rushes? Or maybe Protoss laser shows? Knock yourself out. In Krush Kill and Destroy 2, however, all three factions are about as interesting as a beige sweater. The most unique thing here, the Evolved can sacrifice units to summon demons. It looks like that sacrificial altar in front of the Evolved base wasn't there just for show. Anyway, after you sacrifice 5 units at this altar to the Chaos Gods, you get yourself a demon. Sounds cool, right? Wrong. Sure, the demons shoot lasers, which is cool, but they're just above average units. Better than most infantry, but still quite susceptible to tier 3 turrets and splash damage. And I do think it's fair to compare Krush Kill and Destroy 2, a Command & Conquer clone, with Starcraft, as both were launched in 1998. Blizzard launching their RTS in March and Beam launching theirs in June to October. Another issue makes the unimpressive units look even worse, and that is that the game is extremely restrictive when it comes to strategy throughout the campaign. Don't get me wrong, you absolutely can take an hour or so to build up a base and slowly wither down your opponent using the units you like, and you'd better like tech level 4 and 5 tanks, because anything else will have huge issues getting past tier 2 and tier 3 turrets. But let me ask you, do you like wasting your time? Because building up a massive base with a powerful economy is a waste of time. If you want efficiency, rush the AI with infantry. Seriously, the best thing to do in this game, especially on maps where the AI has big bases, such as the final strongholds, is to hand out rifles and grenades to a lot of guys. This game's campaign is based on rushing the enemy using human, mutant or robot wave tactics. Now, should you just rush the enemy base and that's it? No. On every single map where the AI has a base, all you have to do is to attack and destroy the oil fields. Every single time. This is by far the absolute best way to play the game. And the game knows it because oftentimes it will leave a small gap for you to reach those oil fields. Or there's some sort of gimmick, like having to use amphibious units to reach the oil fields. Or the oil fields are rather far from the main base and not as well defended, or something like that. I kind of resent the fact that in a strategy game, I don't have a lot of strategies I can use. You can play the campaign the way I usually do, which is knowingly ignore the absolute OP tactic of rushing with infantry, and instead build up a base because I like the base building aspect of RTSs, but you'll just end up wasting a lot of time. Furthermore, wasting too much time building up a good economy and a big base can leave you vulnerable to AI attacks. While it might seem that the AI is not as aggressive as it used to be in the first game, it seems to grow in power exponentially as time passes. The more oil it extracts, the more units it will use in attacks, and the more time passes, the better those units will be. So the AI initially might start attacking with a handful of infantry and a few supporting vehicles, but after a while, and not even a long while, you'll start seeing tech level 4 and 5 units including aircraft. This type of power growth again incentivizes the rush tactics. I know it sounds logical for the AI to do exactly what it is that it's doing, to progressively improve. However, on a lot of maps, the AI has enormous advantages, such as starting with all the buildings already up and a few of them already having been researched once or twice. Or more commonly, the AI starts with a base and you have to take quite some time to reach a target area where you can deploy a base. Oftentimes, it's quite difficult to make up for the time where you just couldn't improve your troops, build up your economy, or man up your defenses. I don't know what disappoints me most about this game, the fact that this is a strategy game where the strategy is extremely limited, or that the free factions, free, not 5, not 10, not 20 factions, have almost nothing unique and interesting. And no, the fact that the robots are a bit more expensive but a bit tougher is absolutely not equivalent to playing the Protoss and using a Dark Archon to capture an SCV or a drone. That is unique, that is cool. Mostly bland units and limited tactics are not our only problems. We also have to deal with the rather narrow battlefield. Or maybe it's that some of the best units are just a little too big. It doesn't matter, the end result is the same. The more units you use and the bigger they are, the more likely it is that they will pile up and cause a traffic jam. In some cases you can micromanage your troops and decongest the traffic, but if you're attacking, you're still going to take significant damage. The car pileups are going to be a much larger problem when you're attacking a base, because you're going to have to deal with turrets. The tier 1 turret is okay against mechanized units and pretty good against infantry. As you'd expect, the tier 2 turret is good against infantry and mechanized units. Then there's tier 3. Oh boy, this thing, regardless of faction, is capable of single-handedly destroying entire armies. Even worse, for you, tier 3 turrets are often guarded by anti-aircraft guns, making aerial attacks extremely risky or extremely expensive. So when you see these turrets, expect heavy casualties unless you're using the artillery constructible. Unfortunately, I'm not done complaining, because now I have to talk about the missions where you either don't have a base or don't start off with one. In the first game, these types of missions, which I call the small army type missions, because you're given a small force and have to achieve some sort of goal, were a nice change of pace, as you didn't have to deal with the unrelenting AI. In Krush Kill and Destroy 2, that is no longer the case, and the small army type missions are just infuriating, and the level design is just, well, dickish. These levels seem to have been made only for the designers to go, haha, gotcha. There are so many examples of these types of maps, so let's look at only a few. In the survivor mission called the Convoy, you have to find a bunch of oil trucks somewhere on the map. Remember that at the start of a level, you don't have a map, and the game doesn't reveal the location of the objective, in this case the trucks, so that you know where you have to go. This means that you are expected to run around a fog of war-filled map and hope to find the trucks. What's most likely going to happen is that you're going to find a lot of enemy units and maybe a couple of turrets. Since you have no oil, you can't produce more units. This means that any unit lost during the scouting of the map is a huge problem, as there might be some sort of reinforced point that you have to destroy before reaching the trucks. And in the case of this map, there actually is a turret that has to be destroyed before reaching the objective. All of these factors combined make this a frustrating time waster of playing pin the explosive charge on the mutant direwolf while in the dark. What about this other survivor mission called Charlie Don't Surf? The gimmick here is that you start off with some amphibious units and have to reach a base located on an island. This time, in addition to the random units scattered around, the side your units are facing and what looks like the only way into the water is filled with tier 3 turrets. So you scout through the dark only to be blindsided by these freaking Tesla coils over and over and over again. The secret here is to go left and then follow the cliffs. There's one mission on the evolved side that really pissed me off the first time I played this game. Again, you start off with a small army and a deployable base. Okay, you have to reach some oil fields and build up a base. I'm not going to bore you with all my attempts to find those fields, but I tried everything initially. I tried reaching the bridges near an enemy base, but I couldn't cross them with the deployable base. I checked every corner, hoping that maybe there's a hidden path. But even so, I just couldn't move my base beyond a certain point. It turns out that the only viable path to the objective is hidden behind some ruined apartment buildings and then crossing a few bridges. Maybe it's my fault for not seeing it. Sure, absolutely, but the map is at least a little bit guilty due to how obtuse it is. There are other similar missions as well. All the factions have them and a lot of the details can change, such as if you even find a base. Sometimes there are tech bunkers just like in the first game that are kind of mandatory. Or maybe there are some friendly units that you have to recruit by getting close to them. But in essence, this is how all of the small army type missions work. Clumsily making your way through a minefield of enemy troops, abusing the hell out of the save function. Oftentimes these maps are more frustrating than anything else and occasionally more infuriating than either the bland units or the lack of tactical diversity. There is some good news though, the skirmish mode that doesn't actually exist. I mean, there isn't a dedicated button for it. No chaos mode this time. However, you can skirmish against the AI via the multiplayer options, where you can set up matches against one or multiple AI opponents. Here you have all the map setup options you could need, things such as starting funds, AI difficulty, map, victory conditions, fog of war, etc, etc. I was honestly quite surprised by how fun this mode was. In fact, I dare say skirmish mode is better than the campaign. Sure, it's not Starcraft, but at least you get to play without slogging through sadistic level design or pretending your units have personalities. Furthermore, the AI from what I've seen, at least on the normal difficulty, is quite acceptable. It can sometimes rush, it tries to develop its base, it uses all the units and buildings it has access to, and it can build some tough nut to crack bases. Speaking of which, let's move from worse to bad with the campaign and story. For the campaign, you can choose to start with any faction, and I wanted to see the Survivor campaign first because in the previous game they had my favorite unit, the Sniper. It was later I discovered that the Snipers are gone. Yeah, they removed the Sniper, my favorite unit, and the primary reason I liked the Survivors. That kind of sucks. However, there is some good news, which is that the Sniper was replaced with this guy.
Court's adjourned.
Yeah, the new unit looks somewhat like a sleeveless judge. As opposed to the linear campaign of the first game, this time we will be offered multiple missions in different territories on the campaign map and we can choose which one we want to play. The missions in the campaign are unique to each faction, so even when you eventually reach the same territory on the campaign map, the level layout, the level on which you actually play, is unique. There is one map that is the same regardless of what faction you play, namely the opponent's stronghold. In order to win the campaign, you have to complete all the missions and destroy the other faction's strongholds, which is to say a couple of giant, extremely well-defended bases. Let's say you are playing the Survivors. You reach the Evolved's last bastion where you start on a small island, with your objective being to eliminate the mutant bases that can be found on different islands. If you then play the Series 9 robots and reach the Evolved stronghold, you will once again find yourself on a very familiar level where you have to destroy the mutant bases on different islands. The first couple of levels in the Survivor campaign really made me panic because in the first mission I played against the robots, you are given a base, and I was expecting the same unrelenting AI of the first game. As for the other mission I could have selected against the Evolved, you have to fight 2 AI opponents, which is something that you do only once in the first game, and that is in the final mission of the campaign. Turns out that the AI has been much better tuned and you can take on multiple AIs with relative ease, I think. Because I'm going to be very honest, I don't understand the AI's behavior. Sometimes the AI is a perfect challenge. It attacks and it can be dangerous, even mission-ending dangerous, but that usually means that you've made quite a couple of mistakes. Other times, on the same map, using the same tactics as on previous attempts, the AI seems to have gone out for a coffee and it's almost nowhere to be seen, only attacking a few times. Then there are the times where the AI is even more hardcore than the unrelenting aggressive AI of the first game. I even uninstalled this game a few times and restarted the campaign thinking that I messed up the game somehow, primarily by using the unit editor. Krush Kill and Destroy 2 might not have a dedicated skirmish button, but it has a unit editor button. The name of this option is pretty much self-explanatory. You can change the stats of units. It's like having in-game cheats. Oddly enough, the maps that I enjoyed the most were base building maps where there was no oil or there was a similar complication. On one survivor mission you do have a power station and 2 trucks, but those trucks are almost immediately shot by a tier 1 evolved turret that's firing from an unreachable position on foot. If you don't move quickly, you lose those trucks and it's basically game over because you can't raise any buildings on this mission. So, what you have to do is, at the start of the level, immediately recruit infantry, pack them up in the supply dropships, find the one side of the evolved base that's not protected by AA guns, and take down the tier 1 turret. After that, it's mostly a simple matter. When I say that the levels are designed with gaps or gimmicks to allow you to take down the enemy, here is a good example. On this map you have to fight both the Series 9 and the Evolved. For the most part you will have to get around the map using aircraft, and if you scout a little bit you'll find an undefended oil rig belonging to the Evolved. Just get some troops in the aircraft, land next to the rig and cripple the mutant's economy. Most, if not all the maps have something similar. After destroying the 2 opponents' strongholds, you win the campaign and are rewarded with a small badass cutscene. Maybe it's a little bit cheesy, but I still like it. While I did have fun with some missions on the survivor side, that's not something I can say about the Evolved campaign. I hated this campaign so much that after a point I started using cheats. To be more precise, I edited some of their unit stats to something that would allow me to breeze through the missions. I've tried multiple times to replay this campaign without modified units to see what exactly is happening and why I don't like it, but I just can't zero in on a single primary reason. I don't really know if it's due to the uninteresting units that bored the hell out of me, this faction's units actually being the weakest ones in the game even if the stat differences are minuscule, my disappointment with how much weaker the Evolved in Krush Kill and Destroy 2 feel compared to the Evolved in the first game, or if there were more dickish maps and level designs compared to the other factions' campaigns, but I hated every single moment playing these guys. Well, regardless, here's their end campaign cutscene. The Series 9. Oh boy was I looking forward to playing these guys. Ever since HK47 I love robots. HK was a great character, so here is a faction that might have a hunter-killer type robot. Hell yeah. And as an added bonus, it just happens to be the new faction. New units, new everything. However, just like with the Evolved, there's something off, and I don't want to invest too much time into finding out what exactly that is. Sadly, the fact that I kind of like a few maps is the best I can say about the campaign, mostly because the story is a joke. and not in a funny way either. I can summarize the entire story for all 3 factions in 3 words: exterminate the others. That's it. That's all there is to it. Almost every single mission is just an annihilation mission. And even on the rare occasion where you have a different objective, like rescuing an incompetent scout, nice reference to the first game by the way, narratively it makes no difference. In other RTSs, while there's a greater goal, there are missions that either deviate from that goal or feel like they are a logical prerequisite to reaching that goal. Something like we need to evacuate the spy because he has vital information. Then in the next mission, or the mission after that, there's a briefing where we are told how to use the spy's information in order to win a fight and move closer to completing the greater goal.
General Hassan has joined us.
One vision, one purpose.
The technology of peace.
Be seated. One death is not enough for Anton Slavik. For attempting to give our enemy our most vital secrets, the GDI spy should die 1,000 times. In the name of Cain! Sweet dreams, Slavik.
Just another small example, at no point do we have to capture a building or enemy settlement in order to extract some new information or unlock a new unit, even if that unit was part of the faction's normal roster, and it's just a narrative thing. The entire story of all the factions is as one note as it could be. Now, I understand that this is done to some degree in order to have this choose your mission type campaign, but it makes the overall story bland and disappointing. I might as well add the immersion part of my analysis because there's no need to talk about the overall narrative as it's just terrible. In an RTS, immersion can be quite difficult to pull off sometimes, and while there are examples of good immersive RTSs, Krush Kill and Destroy 2 is not one of them. Again, bland units, characters, and the lack of any good significant differences between the factions are enormous detriments to the immersion. As pluses in this category, I would say the music and the look of the units and buildings. So there's something there, but not a whole lot. Okay, there is one cool thing that units do. When idle, some units have a small animation. The infantrymen smoke a cigarette, the grenadiers play with the grenade, and so on and so forth. This is a pretty small, not very significant, but fun, immersive idea. Let's see what reviewers at the time had to say about Krush Kill and Destroy 2. GameSpot, 3rd of December 1998. The basic gameplay is a combination of old school and new school. There's no attempt at a plot and each mission is basically the same. Build base, gather resources, destroy enemy. You might have a mission that gives you a handful of troops and you need to make do with just these units. Overall though, expect a lot of build base, gather resources, destroy enemy. Thankfully, the game is infused with enough new school play to keep up with the competition. Take some Red Alert, mix with Starcraft, stir in some extreme tactics and total annihilation, add a pinch of Dark Rain, and cook until all flavor is lost. Whatever feature you can think of from your favorite real-time strategy game can be found in Krush Kill and Destroy 2. Waypoints, marshalling points, production queues, squishing infantry with tanks, map bookmarks, making your own units, the list goes on. But except for making your own units, which has been done before but never done so well, none of it's new. Sure, it's all well executed, but no new benchmarks are set. There's nothing really wrong with Krush Kill and Destroy 2 as a whole. In fact, in terms of clones, it's at the top of the list. The graphics are nice, the sound effects are decent except for the repetitive unit acknowledgement, the AI is truly good, there's a heap of features, but it's all old news. It's not horrible, as in Conquest Earth horrible, but it's not the type of game that causes you to make exclamations of glee while playing. If you've been in a bomb shelter for the past year and haven't played Total Annihilation or Starcraft, you'll consider Krush Kill and Destroy 2 a fantastic game. For the rest of us, it's too much imitator and not enough innovator. GameZilla 1998. If you're only looking for the latest and greatest in the RTS genre, Krush Kill and Destroy 2 is probably not for you. The game does have some new features, especially in the AI department, but as a whole, it's nothing revolutionary. On the other hand, if you're real into games like Starcraft and Command & Conquer, Krush Kill and Destroy 2 is worth a look. The game offers a real challenge in single-player games and provides enough variation in military units and technology so that even veteran RTS players should enjoy a multiplayer deathmatch. Computer Gaming World, February 1998. The AI is actually good at assembling efficient groups of varied units, but it falls prey to many of the standard RTS tricks. It will chase decoys repeatedly into kill zones. It doesn't vary its attack approach much, and it doesn't build good enough defenses around its base. Much of this is avoided with some scripting in the single-player campaigns, but this results in some annoying puzzle-oriented missions. Pros: balanced gameplay, good unit variety. Cons: almost no innovations. Falls for stupid AI tricks, awful minimap. I know I've been pretty harsh on Krush Kill and Destroy 2 Krossfire, and honestly, it deserves it. But here's the thing, I wanted to like this game, I really did. I mean, the first game had its issues, sure, but when I saw that there was a sequel, I dared to hope that some or most of my issues would be solved, and to my surprise, they were. Unfortunately, new, pretty significant issues popped up. As it stands, Krush Kill and Destroy 2 feels more like a cult classic than a timeless masterpiece. A quirky little RTS with a cool aesthetic and theme that will stick in your brain like a catchy but slightly annoying jingle. That said, I'd still recommend this game to seasoned RTS veterans who are looking for a challenge and haven't already given it a whirl. You'll definitely be tested, mentally, strategically, and occasionally emotionally when the AI decides to do whatever the hell it feels like. But if you're more of a casual RTS fan, save yourself the trouble. Dust off your Starcraft CD or fire up Command & Conquer. Those games are like comfort food, reliable, satisfying, and unlikely to make you question your life choices. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you next time. Have an awesome day.